Boom. Longhorns grab a big one, guys. Kaliq Lockett, wide receiver out of Saxe High School, Garland ISD, chooses the Longhorns over a host of national suitors, including Alabama, among others. I mean, Jerry, they went far and wide for the young man out of Saxe High School. What do you think of the pickup here for the Longhorns? The first at the wide receiver position, by the way, in the 2025 recruiting class.
Look, I think when you look at Kaliq Lockett, as we'll watch his huddle, he is one of the elite, very high-end timing pass catchers in this class. His ability to track a football, time it with extraordinary catch radius. And I've said this before on air. He has 11-inch hands, biggest hands I've ever seen on a 6'1.5", 6'2" wide receiver. I mean, he has got big hands. And he can really leave his feet and go win the 50-50 ball. He's got great timing, got tremendous body control. He's not going to win races. He's not out there on the track blowing up times in the spring. But what he is going to do is get to his spots. And if you can get the ball in the area code, like you see right there, he's going to make an athletic play on it. Again, huge catch radius, good timing leaving his feet, good body control, can contort his body and make difficult catches in traffic. And he's got those plucker hands. I mean, 11-inch hands. He can just go up and catch the last half of the football. It doesn't really matter with this guy. But he plays in a wide-open offense at Saxe for Red Barons, same high school coach of Devin Duvernay, by the way, who signed with Texas in the NFL. And Michigan quarterback Alex Orji played at Saxe High. So Kaliq Lockett, Bobby, was Texas, Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Florida State. He also had some interest in USC. His father's from Los Angeles. His mom grew up in Louisiana, Mississippi. So he's not really a Texan there all the way back in the family. But I think the thing that with Texas that put the Longhorns over the top was the combination of academics, athletics, the scheme offensively, the quarterback room, and the move to the SEC. I think those were all combined. Steve Sarkisian's offense being big, and that led to Kaliq Lockett committing to Texas.
I look at it, Jerry, and listening to Steve Sarkisian on Monday at his press conference, he was talking about how only one receiver right now on his roster was that outside-only type of guy. And that's Ryan Wingo, a bigger guy, not unlike Kaliq Lockett in that regard. What do you make of that? I mean, is he primarily going to be an outside guy in Sark's offense, in your opinion?
Yeah, outside receiver all the way, that X receiver. I think that's exactly what he is. I don't see this as Lockett being a guy that lines up in the slot. You're going to want to put him on the outside, a lot like Texas did with A.D. Mitchell, more so on the outside. Let him go win 50-50 contested balls in the SEC against longer limb corners with size. I think Texas is going to see more of that in the SEC than they saw in the Big 12. So having a couple of guys on your roster like this, like Kaliq Lockett, that can go win the contested 50-50 back shoulder ball, the timing throws, and the intermediate and vertical game, I think that is exactly what Kaliq Lockett is, and I think that's exactly why Steve Sarkisian coveted him.
You mentioned some of the competitors for him. It really came down to Texas and Alabama. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure Alabama had much confidence, though, because they got Caleb Cunningham. And I think they knew once they got Caleb Cunningham they kind of play a very similar position, and that might be tough for them. Alabama would have taken him. Obviously, LSU, all these schools would have taken him. But Alabama, I think in the mind might have been the number 2, but I don't think Alabama thought they were going to win the recruitment.
All right. I'm looking at it right now, and he's a very, very productive receiver as well, Jerry. What were his stats on his junior year exactly?
Yeah. So he played on varsity his freshman year. Hard to do at Saxe High. They play in the 6A level in that Garland ISD district. He had 15 catches, 285-ish yards, 4 touchdowns as a freshman. He came back his sophomore year, 29 receptions, 492 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Last year, he exploded onto the scene nationally. 59 receptions, 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 1,299 yards to be exact. So he was a big play guy for a really talented team that has a number of Division I players on an annual basis. I mean, you can go down the list of guys who have played at this school: Devin Duvernay, Jared Maiden, Michael Clemens, Tyler Lacey, Divine Nzigbo. Then you have Alex Orji, the quarterback at Michigan this year. So it's one of the more talented schools on an annual basis in DFW. And the fact that he played a key role as a freshman and then has grown to where he is the guy says a lot about his talent level. But, I also, Bobby, I stopped by the school last year in the spring. It was fun conversation. He is a funny kid. He has got a personality. The one thing I'll tell Texas fans outside of the huddle tape, the stats, the recruitment, everything we talked about, I think he's a tremendous culture fit at Texas. I think just the conversation, I had about a 20-minute conversation in Coach Barron's office with Kaliq Lockett. And I walked away thinking, you know what? That kid's a really good fit at Texas.
I look at it, Jerry, and I got to ask you this question because it's evident that he's very productive. We just saw 5 or 6 minutes worth of highlights there. But is there a comp you have for him to someone else you've seen around either in the state of Texas or elsewhere in your journeys?
It happens to be both. It's the different frame, but Jalen Polk out of Lufkin High, who went to Texas Tech, Texas fans very familiar with. He transferred to Washington and was a second-round pick in the 2024 NFL draft. And I say Jalen Polk because Jalen Polk wasn't the fastest guy. He ran 4.52 at the NFL Combine, and people are like, well, that's not slow. It's not slow. But at the NFL Combine, it's not one of the top times. I mean, you're talking Xavier Worthy from 4.2 into the 4.3s and all the guys in the 4.4s. So it was a lower percentile time at wide receiver in the Combine and testing numbers. And I don't think Kaliq Lockett's going to blow away 40s in shuttles at a Combine setting. I think he's a ball winner, a tremendous route runner, a guy that's going to have really good feel in the intermediate and vertical passing game. And with Jalen Polk, for those that watch him play, they remember how really good timing he had. He could sell routes, then he could time leaving his feet, and he can make those difficult, contested receptions. And so a guy that I saw most recently that came to mind, it's different frame, because Jalen Polk coming out of high school is probably 6'1", 175, 180, 205 pounds when he got drafted. We'll see if Kaliq Lockett carries 200, 205 pounds. Kaliq's probably about half an inch to an inch taller, has a little bit longer arms. But Polk did have long arms for his height. But that's the person that came to mind as far as strengths as a player, maybe a comparison athletically where he might fall versus some of the other guys in the class.
All right, Jerry, obviously the first wide receiver taken in this class for Steve Sarkisian. There are still others out there. They're after Jamie French out of Jacksonville Mandarin. It also pushes the team recruiting rankings up pretty considerably. Highly ranked player like Kaliq Lockett coming on board. Longhorns look like they're going to have a pretty big month of August, at least at right now as we stand. You feel good about where Texas is headed with this recruiting class still? Because June and July, we were a little concerned, but things have kind of turned a little bit here, and the Texas Longhorn coaching staff starting to enjoy a little bit of the fruits of their labor.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think Texas is going to be inside the top 10 class. I think they're going to be knocking on a door for the top 5 recruiting class once again for a 4th straight year. I don't think anything's changed. The whole thing with me has been, are they going to fill all their needs? That's defensive line. What is that going to look like? Are they going to fill those needs? Defensive back, we'll find out. But I agree with you. I think August could be a good month for Texas and push them up into that 7 to 8 range in the class rankings, if not 6, if things really fall their way. So Texas is right where they want to be. And I've said this, and I'm a broken record, but I'll say it again. This class ranking is higher than it was a year ago, and it's higher than it was 2 years ago at this point in time. Just something to keep in mind.
All right, before we give way to Rod Babers, the former All-Southwest Conference cornerback, NFL defensive back as well, who's going to do some critiquing of Kaliq Lockett and talk about what he really brings to the table for the Longhorns on an either further basis. We want to make sure you guys get an opportunity to join the discussion, join the group and the community over at ontexasfootball.com. That's where Jerry and I, myself, CJ Vogel, as well as Blake Monroe, are on each and every day answering your questions, talking Longhorn sports and football. Please join us over there on texasfootball.com. Feel free to post a question, etc. We'll try to jump on there and answer. Also engage with other people here on the OTF family. All right, this now we're going to give away to Rod Babers But before we do so, I want to say one last thing. Kaliq Lockett, hook 'em.
Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, and I want to tell you about the latest commitment for the Longhorns in the 2025 class, the wide receiver Kaliq Lockett out of Saxe, Texas. A lot to be excited about with this young man. First of all, he's a great prospect. If your quarterback is a little inaccurate, say your quarterback is a little off target, because this guy is great at contested catches. High points the football at his high point, attacks the football ferociously in the air. That's what I love about him. His vertical timing is elite. Will be a great rebounder in basketball, but he's great at those vertical passes, trying to go up and get them. Turns a 50-50 ball into an 80-20 ball. He's also very impressive at contested catchability down the field, vertically down the field. And what I love about him, he has an innate ability. I almost describe him as a guy that can widen small windows for a quarterback, right? He can make a small window a much larger window just with the way he positions himself down the field. You see it there with, sometimes out the contested catchability. He can go up and attacking the football. So he's a quarterback's best friend. And I think in terms of his down the field vertical ability, the verticality within his skill set, I would say that he's one of the best deep ball receivers that I've got a chance to watch on film in a really long time. In the terms of where he attacks the DBs, stacks the DBs, in terms of that's getting on top of them and getting your quarterback a wide window to throw, whether he wants to throw it over the outside shoulder or to throw it over the inside shoulder or throw it over the top. I mean, he gives his quarterback a lot of options with the way he runs his vertical routes, which, by the way, makes him really compatible in Sark's offense. Sark's has what he called a run to daylight philosophy, and Sark's run to daylight philosophy, essentially he wants movement routes where wide receivers, when they get the ball on the move, so they can create yak opportunities, yards after the catch. A guy like this, he's great in that run to daylight philosophy on the post route, on the non-route. Once again, there you go. Right? He has just a great knack for catching the football downfield. So I think in terms of compatibility, those speed cuts that Sark wants in his offense, the opportunities for yak down the field, the movement routes that I discussed, I think he really does fit what Sark wants to do. He also, what I love about him, he's detailed in his route running. You can see this. You can see him setting up defenders in his route running. Very patient in the way that he runs his routes. His stems, his vertical stems up the field, shows me that there's some detail, that there's a meticulous nature about the way that he runs his route. Really good at working the sideline, as you can see there. Superb body control. And that was, I think he was just showing it off on that previous highlight there. Great body control off target throws. So this is a guy that really can manipulate his body at times, can do some Cirque du Soleil type things on the sideline if needed. So what you're talking about, his physical dimensions, about 6'2", maybe pushing 180. Probably could gain, a couple of pounds because he's got a really long wingspan, about 6'7" wingspan, arm length, got really big hands, which he uses to go attack the football. So there's just a lot to like about Kaliq Lockett's game. And I think ultimately for Texas, this is the perfect type of receiver for Sark's offense. Guy's got some high-end speed, but ultimately he's great at getting the ball down the field. And we know Sark wants to bring the vertical element back to the offense, and he wants receivers that can really stretch the field, take the top, blow the top off a defense. That's certainly what Kaliq Lockett can do. So that is my breakdown evaluation of the latest commitment for the Longhorns, the wide receiver position, Kaliq Lockett.